want to jump in here because there's like several topics I want to discuss. One of your most recent Substack, mRNA vaccines in livestock and companion animals are here now. I mean, this is a breaking story. What have you learned? Why should the American people be concerned about mRNA vaccines now in livestock and in the companion animals?
So I want to give a shout out to my partner in all things for my entire adult life, Jill Glasspool Malone.
It's amazing.
Who was trained,
yes. Amazing.
Who was trained as in animal health at UC Davis, has worked for two of the top zoos in the United States, the San Diego Zoo and the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. And of course, we've been running small farms and breeding horses for most of our adult lives. So Jill is someone who likes to do the primary research and likes to be a little bit in the background. I'm kind of the front man. She did the due diligence on this, and she was the primary author of that article. And this was prompted by my having made a statement in some podcast that the press picked up on, in which I alerted people that I believe that soon we were going to see an effort to deploy even COVID-19 mRNA vaccines broadly into companion animals and livestock animals as well as zoo animals. And that happened to a certain extent, but the press picked up on it, magnified it, and then came back and wanted to see the data. So Jill dove in, and what she's found is a couple of things that are important. Number one, there's no law, there's no statutes that require the USDA to provide any kind of tracking information or disclosure about what's going on in clinical trials in research for animal health, including animal health vaccines.
Wow. Right.
In contrast to in humans, where after the AIDS crisis, there was a big push for transparency, and eventually that led to congressional action and statutes which require disclosure through the website clinicaltrials.gov that's managed by the National Library of Medicine together with PubMed. Mm-hmm. So that's how that happened. That's how we have that primary information about what's going on in humans. Like, for instance, you can data mine that and find that there are 50 clinical trials on mRNA vaccines currently in progress here in the United States, and over 200 that are planned for mRNA vaccines and mRNA-based medicines using the same formulations. But on the animal health side, it's really hard to get the information. So she literally spent days because she didn't want the press jumping all over us with the fact checkers and needed to back up what I'd said with a more comprehensive analysis. And it's really hard to get the primary information. And you have to search through press releases and disclosures about licensing agreements and partnering agreements and all that. But what you find when you do that is that all of the major animal health organizations, like the one that Merck runs and Pfizer's, which is called Zoetis, is that they all have these programs in play. The Pfizer Zoetis one, they seem to kind of hide what they're doing. They all do. They only disclose partnerships and things when there's a strong commercial interest. They're not really transparent. But in the case of Merck Animal Health, it's clear that they have been granted something akin to emergency use authorization for swine vaccines based on mRNA tech. And apparently those are currently being used in North America. We've heard reports, and this is unverified, of farmers having USDA personnel coming onto their farm telling them that they must use these products.
Really?
So just to kind of underscore that, like I said, not verified, just first-person reports. You asked the question, why should you care?
Yeah.
And here's the thing is that with these products, many of them, the Pfizer and Moderna, Pfizer/BioNTech product and the Moderna product, that material that they tell us is mRNA is not really mRNA. It's a modified molecule that has features, characteristics of mRNA, but other characteristics that are very different. It lasts and lasts and lasts. Brett Weinstein and I did a podcast about this from Ireland a number of months ago, where Brett used the metaphor that these RNAs are akin to a plastic log. It just doesn't degrade in a normal process like you and I see in the forest when we have down wood here. These mRNAs persist. We don't know for how long. We don't know where they go. We don't know if they're taken up by other cells. We now know, even though the official party line has been that they can't be transferred, but now we know that they can be transferred in breast milk. And I can tell you, as somebody trained in pathology, if these materials can be transferred in breast milk, they're probably present in sweat, because sweat glands are a modified, mammary glands are a modified sweat gland. They could well be available through other bodily secretions. We'll just leave that like that. And what's shocking is that the regulatory agencies have completely failed to do their job and have not insisted that the pharmaceutical industry characterize these things that are readily tested. So in the case of animal health, at this point, it is a valid concern that the material that's injected into an animal might persist in the meat product produced after slaughter. And I think the general assumption must be that unless proven otherwise, the assumption has to be that this is a valid risk. So the burden is on the vaccine manufacturers and unfortunately also on the producers to demonstrate that if they're going to use materials, they are no longer present within the final product that we consume when we go to the grocery store. And alternatively, it raises the specter for folks like Brooke, who runs a high-end cattle ranch that produces grass-fed natural beef, and he's not supplementing it with hormones. For those that are producing, let's say, a more organic, natural product, they absolutely should feature the fact, in my opinion, that they're not using these products so that consumers know. I think the key here is there has to be transparency. And the USDA has enabled all kinds of policies that obscure the provenance of these products that we eat. So for instance, if it's brought in from Brazil or China, a meat product, and it comes to a butcher or a processor, all they got to do is put a knife on it, and then it can be labeled as made in the United States, and the consumer has no idea where it came from.
Origin. Doctor, so on the human side, you have an emergency, which is then, as the left always says, don't take advantage of every emergency. Billions of dollars get flooded to quote unquote. Yes, he does. And this is health again, right? So it's an explanation or reason to spend billions of dollars to prop up a solution, right? So, and everybody now must take it, because if you don't take it, you're going to make grandma sick. And now,
let me pick at that for a minute, Matt.
Yeah, pick at that.
So if you think it through, this is one of these things, they don't make it transparent for you. So let's just take a moment and think through this ecosystem. Pfizer and Moderna refuse to market the licensed product. They have licenses for some of these things, and they refuse to market the licensed product in the United States. They're only allowing the distribution of the emergency use authorized product. That provides them with all kinds of extra safety provisions from the federal government, because it's functionally the FDA is the sponsor. Okay, this is one of the twisted things about EUA, is it makes the federal government the sponsor in a legal sense instead of the pharmaceutical company. So if you're Pfizer, you're selling a material through a very unusual contract vehicle, the other transactional authority, which allows you to avoid the usual contract clauses that include liability, etc., and accountability. So you're selling this material to the U.S. government. That single customer then does your marketing for you. That marketing is the billions, over $10 billion deployed through the propaganda mechanisms to cause all of us to accept this product, to entice and compel us. And the customer, the pharmaceutical company's customer, has used the ability to mandate that people will take this product. And then the customer handles all of the distribution. I mean, it's a perfect business model if you look at it from the eyes of Boria. I mean, what's not to like?
So
You're selling billions of product. You have no liability. You have a single customer.
Yeah, they shut down anyone who wants to argue because they're all these big corporations and all these big tech.
And since the government,
they're all in their pockets.
Since the government owns really every piece of this.
Yes.
Why is it in now the government's interest to share the data about what the impact is of the vaccine? If it was just companies doing it, even a Biden administration might be blaming companies for something they did, but this is something the government did. And now the question is, why are they doing this to livestock and companion animals? I don't know what a companion animal is. I'm saying dogs and cats. But why are they doing that? Is there money here too? What's what's behind the story?
There is massive amounts of money, as we've seen. Yeah. The veterinary vaccine market is huge, and it has all of the same forces that exist in the human vaccine market.
Right.
And anytime, fortunately here in the country, we have veterinarians that have their feet on the ground, and they're not busy trying to push product all the time to make their nickel. But in the big city and in the suburbs, you've got veterinarians that make a lot of money, just like American pediatricians do, on pushing jabs.
Yeah.
It's a very lucrative business. You have a call. They have to come in. You charge your office fee. You administer this product, and you have your veterinary association plus the manufacturers putting out all of this information saying, oh, you absolutely have to do this. In our case with breeding horses, we very carefully review the data on whether or not we need to administer these prophylactic vaccines for spontaneous abortion. The veterinarians, not our vet here, he's got his feet on the ground, but they will guilt trip you into thinking that you're doing horrible things if you don't administer these things. But if you dig into the data, you find out that the justification for what they're doing and the risk benefit is marginal at best and sometimes inverted. But they still push the product because it's core to their business model, just the same as happens in humans.
Amazing.
You tweeted something out, and I loved it, and I know we're going to wrap up here soon, but you said we have to build alternate systems. We probably can't completely stop them or globalization, but we can choose not to buy their food, take their drugs, or weird vaccines, and we can be in charge of our own health. We can be independent people and communities outside of their hellscape. I really think this is a very strong message because I think there's so many people out there who are still dealing with the consequences of vaccine mandates and the stress of having to get the booster shot or not, and it really, I think, has it's hard for a lot of employees who have had to who are forced into taking the vaccine because of their jobs.
Well, and we have the weaponization of fear.
Yes.
At so many levels. Fear, the fear porn is a core CNN business model.
Yeah.
It just is. And it's transparent to anybody that can, take the blinders off. We've had fear pushed on us. I keep saying, hey, folks, we have now survived 3 years of weapons grade military psyops technology designed for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and everything else, the offshore wars, designed to counter fourth generation warfare, which is this insurgency, decentralized kind of stuff like Al Qaeda.
Right.
And we have all across the Western world, they have deployed military grade technology and around PSYOPs, what we call fifth generation warfare, on their own citizens. And just to kind of wrap that thought thread, as you encounter these people in your daily life that are still wearing masks or are wrapped up in the narrative, and you're not, you have been able to see through what they've been doing to us. You don't have to hate them. You can say to yourself, these poor souls have been victimized by what the government has done to all of us and the pharmaceutical industry and the World Health Organization. We can go on and on, but they're victims. And I think that helps to kind of bypass the natural hate and anger with what they've done with these statements that we shouldn't receive medical care, we should be allowed to die, we should be put into camps, shouldn't receive transplants, blah, 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 blah. All of this ugly, ugly stuff. These people have been subjected to military grade propaganda, and we can't help them wake up if we hate them. If we can say in our hearts, open our hearts and say, these poor souls, they've been subjected to military grade propaganda for years now. But what has come out is that the documentation is quite clear that a large fraction of our government has been compromised. Just to loop back a little bit in current events, UPenn is receiving massive amounts of royalty revenue because of Carrico and Weissman, Katie Carrico and Drew Weissman having been responsible for the patent that covers the incorporation of pseudouridine. And they also host Biden's think tank. They were the source of one of the recently revealed classified information boxes. And they take massive amounts of money from the CCP, as do many of these major academic organizations, let's say bicoastal ones in particular. And the receipts are coming in pretty clear that a large fraction of the, let's say, elected leadership within the United States has been compromised in various ways, financially, honey traps, this is the Epstein story, and many other ways. And there seems to be a remarkable parallelism between these people that have been compromised in some way and the group that we call the Uniparty. And on the Republican side, the term rhino is often applied, but I think we really do have to come to grips with what Steve Bannon has been pointing out now for a long time, that in many ways we are at the threshold of having our nation state subverted by globalist organizations that have strong ties to the CCP. And of course, this includes the World Economic Forum. Of course. And I think one of the things that's been shocking to me through this last 3 years is the alignment and coordination with this very authoritarian, totalitarian trend across many of the nation states that originated in Great Britain and the British Empire. And I'm now convinced, and of course that's backed up by the bragging of Klaus Schwab in infiltrating into the Canadian cabinet. Yeah. But if you look at the history of people like Justin Trudeau, who's a trained, and Jacinda Ardern, who's a World Economic Forum trained young leader, and Krista Friedland, who's Justin Trudeau's finance minister. These people all have very deep, strong ties with the World Economic Forum, which brags about having infiltrated and captured the administrations in many of these nation states. And so I think if we step back, look down from 40,000 feet, this unelected globalist body has managed to capture many of these nation states, which are now acting as clients. They're client states captured without firing a shot. And I don't mean to sound alarmist, but from my point of view, the United States is right on the brink of going down that same road if we haven't already. And this is why what just happened with the revolt against the Speaker of the House is so important. A group of 20, essentially, people, elected members of the House, stood up and said, hell no, we're not going to allow this. We need to build
That's
on that.
right. You're absolutely
Amen.
right.
To be this conversation is to be continued amongst horses, mountains.
Yes, absolutely. And we won't tell the girls about the horses because then they'll all be like, Daddy, we need a horse. Thank you, Dr. Robert Malone. You're a friend of CPAC, and we appreciate your wisdom and your courage, and we support the efforts that you're doing. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the chance, and look forward to our next barbecue.
Absolutely.
Yes,
well, and remember, we have expanded to the podcast world, and you can listen to America Uncanceled with Matt and Mercedes Schlapp wherever you get your podcast, and get your CPAC tickets now. Go to cpac.org/DC. You'll be able to see folks like Dr. experts, conservative leaders, brave individuals who are doing what they can to protect our communities and save America. So come join us March 1st through the 4th. We can't wait. And it's going to be really something.